So XDefiant has been out for a little while now, and some major issues have been plaguing the game, proving to be a pretty big problem for Ubisoft so far. We just had a major problem happen with the brand new patch that came into the game that so far is being received incredibly poorly. And the interesting thing is that it looks like Ubisoft knew that was going to happen. But before we get to that, we've got other things that have been leading up to this issue. And the first thing is really that the preseason, man, has been too long. Everyone out there can agree that the preseason being 6 weeks long has been way too long for us to wait to get to season 1 for this game. I know that that was their initial plan all the way back when they first announced the way that this game was going to be doing its launch and through season timeframes. I think at this point, we can all agree that 6 weeks has been too long of a time frame. I think 3 to 4 weeks maximum was going to be the sweet spot for that. Now we've gotten to a point where we're playing the game. We've already done the majority of the things that we wanted to do so far leading into season 1, and there really isn't a lot more to do. There's been some issues with the scaling of XP and getting through the battle pass and completing the content in the preseason before season 1. That has been a little bit of a problem so far in the game, and players aren't really happy with how things have been handled in the preseason from that perspective. But on top of that aspect of things with the preseason, we've also had some major gameplay problems that have been hugely impacting people's experience in the preseason so far. Literally for the first 3-ish weeks of the game, we have had a major problem with people bunny hopping, which is, it's not an exploit, but it is taking advantage of a system where they didn't have any sort of penalty to continuously jumping in the game. And people that like to abuse those kinds of things and like to bunny hop around in games were doing that. You could get into a lobby where you get into a gunfight and you basically have no chance of winning because the person on the other end is literally bouncing around consistently. Unless you just have laser focused aim, you're not going to win that gunfight. That was happening for forever, it seemed like, in the game. And especially once we got to the double weapon XP weekends, wow, like those people came out in full force because they're trying to level up their guns to get their mastery camos, etc., etc. And on top of that, we had an issue with snipers where snipers were like crazy good at the beginning of the game because they didn't have any flinch. I don't know how that slipped through the cracks of the launch, but it came out and there was no flinch on the snipers. You could be in a one-on-one fight with another person who's got an AR, for example, and they're shooting you, they're putting bullets into you, they get 1 or 2 shots into you, and you're sitting there fully scoped in on them, and you're not getting your aim whacked up. You're just chilling. You take the shot, and bam, you get the kill. So that was something that was incredibly frustrating to go up against for the first good bit of the game. The good thing is that they have come out with a patch to address both of these things. The movement still isn't perfect yet because you can still crouch spam and jump spam. It's just the penalty does happen. It just happens later on than I think we would like it to. Right now, it takes 4 crouches or 4 jumps for your weapon sway to start occurring, but I think that should be happening right around the 2 to 3 range, not the 4 range, because in any gunfight, if you're jumping 4 times or crouching 4 times, you're both just bad. So I think that still needs to be adjusted, but they did release a patch to address that, and now snipers do have flinch, but it's just, the game launched with that, which is just very peculiar. And I understand it's the preseason, right? So it's going to launch with problems. It's going to launch with bugs and things that need to be addressed before season 1. But again, when we look at the fact that the preseason is 6 weeks long, this is a long time that we're having to play this game before any real new content comes. And then we have what has been a nightmare for players this week specifically, but especially leading up to now, has been the weapon leveling system in this game. In order to get your weapons, you have to do challenges to unlock them. Okay, that's how you do that. But then in order to get your attachments to make your really good build that you want to do, you have to level up the gun. You get kills in the game, you get XP, and then at the end of the match, you have your levels showcased to you. You level it up once, twice, 3 times, however many times, depending on your performance, you level up your guns. Unfortunately, it took a lot, and I mean a lot of XP in order to get a level on your guns in the game up until this week. It took 3,500 XP in order to get 1 level on a gun. That was taking a really, really long time. In fact, up until this point, they've done double weapon XP weekends every weekend of the game so far. And also on top of that, you can have double weapon XP tokens. So people were doing quad XP every weekend. So basically 1 kill accounts for 4 times the amount of experience you're supposed to be getting normally. And that kind of felt like the normal rate of which you should be unlocking things, if that makes sense. People have been really, really bothered by this. And then on top of that, you have the mastery camos, which are unlocked in the same way. You just simply have to level up the gun in order to get the mastery camos. You have bronze, silver, and gold. Now, they've made a huge change to this because people have been complaining that, hey, it takes too long to level up my guns. I want to have this fixed. So now when you're playing, you have to reach level 100 for bronze, level 150 for silver, and level 200 for gold. But they decrease the amount of XP it takes to level up the gun. But see, the whole point behind this update was supposed to make it to where you got your attachments faster, but it made the mastery system longer. But here's the problem. People have already gotten their golds, their bronze, their silvers, but now they have to play and level up the guns even more in order to max them out, which is kind of the whole thing. If we know that we're going to get another mastery camo in season 1, which we know is happening, that means that in order to get there, we're going to have to get up to gold. So if somebody got gold on their gun before, now they still retain that gold skin, but in order to be able to go after the next mastery camo in season 1, they're going to have to level their weapon up another 50 levels in order to go after the mastery camo because they retroactively adjusted the levels. So everybody's weapon levels are now different from before the patch. And let me just say that people are absolutely hating this patch. There's some people that think it's really, really good, and there are some people that absolutely despise it. If you talk to anybody on the internet, they're going to have a polarizing opinion on this patch. And this kind of is exacerbating the problem where people are upset that we've had such a long preseason because the game is becoming stale. And now it feels like Ubisoft has created an artificially longer road ahead, which for the most part in the preseason has been the really the only form of progression, right? Outside of getting your battle pass maxed out, it's been going after your mastery camos. And that is reflected in the search trends and player counts for the game. Now, I've said many times, and I'll continue to say it, XDefiant has been very successful so far. It has achieved way more players than they were anticipating, but there is real data to show that the game is losing players right now, and it sort of makes sense. Like I said, this preseason has been really long. We're kind of in a little bit of a low point in terms of content for the game. So naturally, that's how things work. People are leaving the game right now. They're not playing as much as they were just a couple of weeks ago. XDefiant's player counts are falling on the charts, and the search trends have kind of returned to the levels that they were before launch. The game is losing sort of that, in-your-face popularity, if you will. Now, that's not saying that it's not going to come back in season 1. I wholeheartedly believe that the game will be very successful once again with season 1, but right now, people are not really feeling it. Now, the good thing is that things are about to change very soon, which is interesting because we just had this major patch that people are hating, but we also now have TDM coming to the game. It is here, depending on when you're watching this, it's finally in the game, actually. TDM is a game mode that we've been begging for and asking about since before the game released, and it's finally actually here. They have been implementing things to the game relatively quickly. It's just that they've also made some poor decisions, I think, that have kind of put themselves in a little bit of a hole and kind of making the game struggle a little bit from the public perception. But I think a lot of that can change with a really strong season 1. According to what we know, season 1 is supposed to have a ton of content and a ton of new things, but not all perfect because ranked play is coming in season 1. And it's not launching the way that I think a lot of people are hoping it will because it isn't going to make it in time for season 1 to launch. With that being said, like I said, season 1 does have a lot of really awesome content that is coming. And if you want to hear about what that content is, then check this video out on screen.